everybody. Welcome to MudPie Podcast. I'm Jesse. And
I'm Ryan.
Yes, and today we're joined with Lyn Buchanan, and we're just going to talk a little bit about your background, CRV, controlled remote viewing, and just kind of see where the conversation goes. So why don't you introduce yourself to everybody? Tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into it, your brief story, and then, yeah, we can go from there.
Okay. My name is Lyn Buchanan. I was a controlled remote viewer and the trainer of the controlled remote viewing unit, finally, after a while, for the U.S. military. And the controlled remote viewing is the press splurged it as psychic spying. And it's gathering intelligence through mental means. And it's a scientifically devised process whereby we can teach people. We were teaching soldiers to like sit down at a table, and through this process tell what's going on in the Kremlin, tell what's going on over the hill, where to point the guns, and
Wow.
And when to duck, and things like that, and so it had strict military uses to start with, and now then it's come into the civilian life, and we're working with police departments and businesses and medical establishments and R&D facilities and things like that, to collect the information that they need to get their work done. And that's what it is.
What's the
Go ahead.
success rate of the remote viewing? Like, how often is it successful?
The success rate we had in the military was, we measured it one time, and it averaged over a 2-month period being 72.8% accurate.
Holy cow.
Which is extremely high for the intel field. In fact, many times that's higher than spy in the sky satellites.
Wow.
But that's higher than the analysis of spy in the sky satellites.
Yeah.
But nobody's perfect, and that average was our bad days, and on good days, we managed sometimes to get over 90% accuracy.
Holy cow. Awesome. Wow.
When you started working with when you got into the military, you didn't join up with the intention of getting into this program? Right. So how did you get involved in that? Like, how did that start?
If you've ever seen The Men Who Stare at Goats, that movie, Lyn, walks through this computer operations area, and all the computers burn out. Well, that's not exactly the true story, but that did happen. And when it did, General Albert Stubblebine, who is the commander of the U.S. Army Intelligence Services, got wind of it, and he had this project going called the Remote Viewing Group. And he came and he moved me into that group with his intent was to start a unit where we could mentally destroy enemy computers, which actually is very easy, and with the end goal of being able to control them instead, so that if they fire a missile at us, we can make it drop into the sea or turn around and go back at them. Mm-hmm. And if it's computer controlled. And so he brought that up to Congress. Congress said, that's mice of mind control. We're not going to do that. Hell no. And so there I was in DC with no assignment. So he took me out to this remote viewing unit and put me in there. And they read me on. Reading you on is where in a highly classified unit, they take you in, they give you a written statement that tells what they actually do, not what they show to the public. And you read it and then you sign it. And once you sign it, 10 years, $10,000 fine if you reveal any of the stuff, you know, while it's still classified. And so they read me on and told me what they did. And I thought, I'm on candid camera. This is stupid. Military doesn't do this. And over the next few days, I saw them working and they were doing it. And so they taught me how to do it. And I wound up being the trainer of the unit before I left. Yeah.
So you didn't know that, or you weren't aware of your ability to do this until after you had joined and someone had shown you how to do it?
I was aware I had the ability to affect things mentally, but that's not what the controlled remote viewing is. It's merely collecting intelligence, never affecting. And so, you know, they developed this at Stanford Research Institute and out in California, and they were using it for 10 years before I ever got there. And they were collecting intelligence, spying on the enemies. Yeah. Very effectively.
Now, were they able to train pretty much anybody? Like, could they just pick any soldier to come into the program and teach them how? Or do you kind of have to have something already? Maybe you're tapped into something a little bit more or some natural kind of gift?
At that time, they were looking for people with gifts. After I had been there for about 3 or 4 years, they said, well, let's see if we can do this with anybody. And so they went to the military personnel computer and they said, the next person who pops up for a reassignment, give me their name. And they grabbed that person, stuck them into the unit. And that person had never had any psychic experience in her life. And she wound up to be one of our best viewers. Yeah, we can teach it to anybody. Yeah.
That's awesome.
What kind of training is involved in that? Like, how do you teach somebody? What kind of process is involved?
It is a step-by-step process to train. And you start them out. It relies very heavily on the martial arts, on physical responses. And so you start out by giving them a pen and piece of paper, and you say, draw the simplest representation you can of land. And they may just draw a flat line. Okay, now draw this absolute simplest representation you can of water, and they'll usually make a wavy line like that.
Sure.
And then, just like the wax on, wipe off, we say, okay, now then we're going to say these words, and they teach you a basic vocabulary of those words. We're going to say these words, and every time we do, you make that shape, okay? And then you train. I trained for like 2 months, just drawing these stupid lines. I didn't sign up for this, man. And it got to where one day I started drawing the correct line before they called out the word. And they said, now you're ready for the next step. And then they teach you to take the water and they say, Okay, describe the water. See if you can taste it. See if you can feel it. What's its temperature? Everything physical. None of this woo-woo stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Everything physical. And okay, water, temperature, oh, cold,
Mhm.
okay, water, taste, salty, whatever. And then they keep doing this until, like in any martial art, those responses get stronger and stronger.
Mhm.
And, cold water tastes salty. They take a picture out of a sealed envelope, and there's a picture of the open ocean. And your subconscious mind has the ability to do this. So what they're doing is they're not teaching you to be psychic.
Mhm.
They're teaching you to get in touch with your subconscious mind and listen to it
Yeah.
through the body, through the physical responses. And
Okay.
so the controlled remote viewing is not really psychic. It's more of a martial art.
Huh.
Wow.
Now, as far as like the work that you were doing in the military, when you were in the military, were you aware of any other agencies that were also using remote viewing for their gain? Because I know there's CIA documents, and then it started back in like World War II, right? People started using remote
Oh
viewers.
yeah, started with this form of it started with Adolf Hitler. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So what are the?
When Hitler lost the war, uh, the U.S., France, and Russia and England split up the nuclear scientists, the rocket scientists, and all that. And Hitler had a project that was doing all of this, and uh, Russia was the only one interested in those people, so they took them. And the way we found out about it, we were one of the last countries to start doing this.
Mhm.
And the way we found out about it was one of the experts from the KGB over there tried to defect and brought the documents that told how they were doing it. And so then they went out to Stanford Research Institute, got some researchers, and developed their own method. Yeah.
Wow.
Now, was the military using this for anything other than like specifically spying on foreign countries? Were they using this? Because I've read reports of the CIA using it to go to view things in different periods of time. Is that even a thing that people are able to do with remote viewing, like see in different areas of time?
Oh
And
yeah,
was that in interest to the
absolutely.
military?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
And into the future too. The future as it stands at the moment. Yeah.
Mm.
Then you can make changes, and then you have to
Mm-hmm.
do the reviewing. But yeah, as far as what the CIA does with it, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's all classified. Uh, as far as what we did with it, the Defense Intelligence Agency, um, we used it for collecting intelligence. And in fact, there is a presidential um, edict, uh, Executive Order 12333, that completely forbade us to do any spying on U.S. citizens.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
If you're from some other country, you're fair game.
Fair game.
Yeah.
Um, are you able to talk about any situations where the remote viewing and worked inside of a military operation, where the remote viewing, like the role that it played in an operation?
Oh yeah, a lot of that has been declassified now. Uh, uh, we were continually, day by day by day, uh, getting Saddam Hussein's plans and intentions for the next day of battle, for what he's doing, for where his assets were, what their capabilities were, the limitations on their capabilities, the limitations on their supply lines, all of the tactical information that's needed. He didn't stand a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we still using remote viewing now in modern military?
I have some standard answers for that. One, when you retire, they quit telling you things.
Yeah.
Sure.
And the other is, I am not a spokesman for the military. Call the public affairs office
Yeah.
and they will turn you in.
Okay, better question. Do
Great
you
response.
know, or do you currently work with organizations that are still using remote viewing for
I
modern day
teach
use?
organizations to use it. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Private
wild.
corporations, agencies, police departments, such as that. Yeah, I teach them now. The methodology and the science was never classified.
Hmm.
The military's use of it was what was classified.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do the organizations that you teach now, since they're not military, still have to adhere to that executive order that you had to adhere to when you were operating?
They don't have to. Yeah,
Really? So they can pretty much free reign.
they have free
Do whatever they
reign.
want.
Yeah, but usually, like a business, uh, they don't care about spying on people. They just want to know what they can use it for their business. Medical, they want to know the latest developments, how to get new developments, and what the future is going to bring, and all that. And research and development. Basically, everybody we teach it to is interested in their own needs.
Yeah.
So do you teach how to remote view the current time, or is there a different method to remote viewing, like the past or the future?
The controlled remote viewing methodology, it's the same exact methodology for viewing the present as it is for the past or future. So if I have you view something in the present, I can say, okay, mentally move 10 feet forward and tell me what you see now. Okay. There is absolutely no difference in the methodology if I say move 10 years forward and tell me what you see now. Move 10 years back, tell me what you see now. Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
So the methodology is the same, past, present, and future. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Why do we not hear about remote viewing more? Like, why can't we?
Now that
Wouldn't
it's
it
moved,
attract more people that are naturally gifted at it if it was more out there and more open?
yes, and you don't hear that much about controlled remote viewing.
Mm-hmm.
Now you get on the internet and remote viewing is all over the internet.
Okay, so what's the difference between the remote viewing and controlled remote viewing?
Controlled remote viewing is the scientific method that was developed for the military at Stanford Research and all that. Remote viewing, once this became public, so help me, every psychic out there said, I'm a remote viewer.
Yeah.
You know, because they found out that it was scientifically acceptable and proven. So now then, everything I've done all my life, I'm a remote viewer. And so they go out and they say, I'm teaching remote viewing. All you have to do is calm yourself, make a pyramid over your head and turn to the right 3 times and you're a remote viewer, you know. And so there is a ton, this may come as a surprise, but there's a ton of garbage on the internet.
I believe it.
Yeah. And the controlled remote viewing, you don't hear a lot about that because now we're not out to prove anything. I mean, it's already been proven. This works. And it's documented. The documentation is there. what we're doing now is we're working for companies, police departments, and all that. And almost without exception, we have to sign non-disclosure agreements.
Mm.
So all the work we do, we can't talk about it.
Mhm.
We can talk about the types of work we do, but no specific company names, no specific, we can't show our work to anybody.
Yeah.
But what's happening is that a company will tell another company, or an agency will tell another agency about it. And when they do, we get somebody else coming in and asking. We
Yeah.
sign non-disclosure agreements with them. And the thing is, the controlled remote viewing, because we are out there actually doing work and signing these non-disclosure agreements, it's very quietly in the background becoming more and more in use with police departments, companies, and all that. Whereas you go out on the internet to find out about remote viewing, and 90% of it out there is garbage. Not garbage. There are some good psychics out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did, like you said that it's starting, kind of behind the scenes, it's starting to become more and more used in police
Yeah.
departments. When did that start? Was there like a time when that started becoming more and more the thing that police departments were using, or?
Yeah. When I got out of service, I formed a unit called the Assigned Witness Unit. I was working for a police department one time for a detective, and trying to explain to him what we do, and all he could hear was psychic, psychic, psychic,
Mhm.
And so I said, well, what information do you need? And he said, we need an eyewitness. And I said, I can assign one. And all of a sudden he realized, he said, you have the ability to assign an eyewitness when there wasn't one physically. I said, yes. And that came about as the name of the organization I formed, the Assigned Witness Program.
Wow.
And with no more greater accuracy than an eyewitness has, eyewitnesses are shown to be pretty fallible too.
Yeah.
But
But you can't necessarily use that in court.
well, that's the thing. When we work for police departments, these days, because of all the stuff on the internet, when you say remote viewing, people hear psychic.
Yeah.
And so what we do for police departments is we work for the detective who is fully briefed on what it is, the accuracy of it, and all that. And then we almost always turn in our reports as an anonymous eyewitness.
Okay.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Do you still remote view like on your own, like for your own gain or pleasure? Or
Yeah.
anything?
How often do you practice?
You bet. Oh yeah. I don't practice as much as I should. I'm making videos for training and teaching and answering tons of email from students and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't practice as much as I should anymore. But yeah, I'm still practicing. I'm still working, still doing a lot of work. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's the so this is a two-part question. What's the either the most intense or strangest thing that you worked on that you're allowed to talk about while you were in the military? And what do you like to practice remote viewing on? Like, what is your go-to, or what things interest you when you're using that?
The most intense session I ever had in the military. An agency in the government needed to know about a death ray that was being developed over in another country. And
You said death ray?
they called it a death ray. It was an extreme intensity, high intensity particle beam weapon. That's what it was.
Oh.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And the question that we received was, what goes on inside the beam? And any instrument you stick in that beam is just evaporated right there, you know. And so there's no way to test inside the beam. And so somebody had the brilliant idea, let's stick a remote viewer in there. And so I volunteered for it. And it was probably the most intense session I've ever had. I found out that inside the beam, because of the molecular energy and all of that, even time is distorted. Time is extremely distorted inside that beam. And there are patterns that, eddy patterns that build up inside the beam. And so I got that information and reported it, and they said that's what they needed. But the experience itself of being in that beam and being in a place where time itself is just all totally screwed up, that was probably the most intense session I'd ever had.
Wow. How long did it take for you to get to that point where you were inside of the beam?
I'd say about 1.5 years of training. Yeah.
Holy cow.
Oh, but in that session?
In that session.
Oh, by that time I could start a session and within 10 to 15 minutes be at it. But the military trains you very well.
Yeah.
Right. And you said 1.5 years of training.
Yeah.
What was that like? Was there like periods where did you start out on the basics and then work your way up, or were you already at?
I started out for like 2 months drawing those simple lines.
Okay.
Getting that subconscious to motor skill going, wax on, wipe off, wax on, wipe off, you know.
Sure.
Now this country that developed this death ray, are you allowed to say what country that was?
Oh, probably, but I'm not sure.
Okay. You could always say what country, like a word that rhymes with that country if you wanted to.
It was not San Marino. Okay.
Okay. Sweet.
It was not the Vatican. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. I feel much better now.
Yeah.
So what kind of stuff interests you in your personal remote viewing experiences?
For me, I'm looking for things like new energy. This is personal. This is what I do for myself. New energy methodologies, new inventions, artwork. I find that much of my artwork will unconsciously, I realize later, include information about some future event that's going to happen. And my artwork, my writing, I like to write, but mainly I like to, solar improvements, agriculture improvements, just getting people, myself, away from dependency on the government, the grid, everything else. As a result, I have my home here, and very quickly. My home is paid for.
Mhm.
I paid for my kids' homes.
Mhm.
Everything I have is paid for. I've solarized everything. We have our own deep well. I have natural gas in the house.
Yeah.
I'm going to get rid of it, and I'm just getting off
Living
the
that
grid.
perfect life.
Great.
Yeah, and
Great.
I walked out on the porch one morning. The sun was coming up, and world, I don't know you an effing thing.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's the dream. That's what I want to do one day.
Oh yeah.
Um,
And you can do it. Yeah.
with this stuff that you're doing right now that interests you, as far as like, going off grid and, using remote viewing as a way to learn these things and these skills, do you feel at all that, like, have you put that information out there for others? Do you find yourself, because sometimes I find people or companies that try to go a more natural route or try to pull away from mainstream stuff, they tend to get censored or monitored or checked up on all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Is that happening with you, and how do you see that happening?
I just, whatever I put out, I try it first.
Hmm.
If it works, I put it out. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And have you caught any flack for any of that, for trying to pull away from?
No, I haven't. Not really. No.
Awesome. Now, I have a strange question, because one thing that when I first started realizing that remote viewing was being used by organizations like the military and CIA, I read a document about this remote viewing session in the CIA where they used a person to remote view off world, like different planets. Specifically, this one was like Mars, and have him go back in time an unbelievable amount of time and
Yeah.
see like civilizations and stuff. Do you know, or have you ever experienced anything like that yourself? Have you ever been used to, or have you ever
Oh yeah.
worked in a situation? Can you
Yeah.
talk about that at all?
We got all kinds of stuff. Yeah. Okay. One time, um, we were asked by this one person within an agency, uh, why did the Mayan cities empty out overnight? And basically, we found the answer, or I found the answer, and got feedback later that they had documentation, that they found documentation from that information that showed it was right. Um, Also, we've done things on other planets. Ingo Swann, who is the creator of the controlled remote viewing, uh, predicted and even sketched what the Jupiter probe was going to find when it reached Jupiter,
Yeah.
and that was 12 years before it got there.
Wow.
That was Galileo, right? Was
Yeah,
that the
yeah,
okay?
yeah. And I got a task one time, didn't know what it was, and found a scoop sticking out of the sand. That's what I found.
Mhm.
That's what I reported. Big scoop sticking out of the sand. And 17 years after that, the person who had tasked me found me. I was already out of service, and sent me a picture from the Mars rover, and there's a scoop sticking out of the sand, and that was their task.
So you
Wow.
didn't know that you were viewing Mars at the time?
I had no idea, no,
Oh,
because one of the things is, in order to not get you polluted by logic and all that,
mhm.
we never tell you what the target is.
So
Well,
how do you locate a thing that's not on Earth? Like, what would they have to say, or what cues would you be given to be able to get to that spot?
um, generally, they determine what the target is,
Hmm.
and they will say, um, they will tell the project manager what the target is. The project manager will then come to a viewer and say something like, we have a customer that has 3 questions. This is project Um, 970408, question number 3, what's the answer? That's it.
And that was all the information you needed to be able to get there.
Yeah, yeah,
That's awesome.
Wow.
it really is. Yeah. I
Crazy.
am no longer surprised by what controlled remote viewers can do.
Mm-hmm.
I will never quit being amazed by it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just astounding, you know.
What is some? Well, actually, before I ask this question, I want to go back. Can you say why what you guys found as far as like the Mayan situation?
Oh, what I found, and they came back and said, was that well, my report to them was because they didn't have any money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And they took that to mean, well, they went broke. That wasn't it. The Mayans did not have the concept of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so the government, everybody paid taxes in service.
Mm-hmm.
And the Mayan cities were not cities at all. They were places where people went to give their service. And as the government crumbled, one group had spent their 2 weeks of service. They went back to their farms, and nobody had been noticed, given notice that it was their turn. And so the next day, nobody came back. The new people didn't come back.
They just basically naturally
Yeah,
became
they just stayed.
self-sufficient, or
Yeah, the government hadn't told them to report for service, so nobody reported. And
oh man,
the next day, that what we call the cities were empty. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
Oh wow, that's interesting. Now, do you know a group or a network, or do you work with a group or network of practicing remote viewers? And what are some of the impressive things that they're working on or that they're looking at that interest you?
I do a lot of teaching, and we have people who have become good, qualified,
Mm-hmm.
certified teachers, and I will, excuse me, if I find a student would work better with another teacher, I will get them to the best teacher for their abilities and all that. And some people specialize in police work and all that. We have one detective, one project manager who runs a detective agency, and she has 25 professionally trained and qualified controlled remote viewers working for her. She's doing phenomenal work. Yeah.
Wow.
Do you ever run into privacy issues, or do you ever feel
All the time.
any concern with privacy issues? And how do you deal with that, or how do you draw the line to something that you're not going to do versus something you are going to do?
One of the big things about controlled remote viewing is it's not a toy,
Mm-hmm.
and it is very accurate. And so you don't get very far into it before you realize that ethics is really important.
Mm-hmm.
And if I find that any of my students are using it unethically, they're out.
Yeah.
The temptation is always there to spy on your wife or whatever, and this no, ethics has to play a big part in this.
Yeah.
Sure.
Now, is there it sounds like there's quite a few people that are practicing CRV working today.
Actually, nowadays there are. It's grown quite a bit. Yeah.
Is there some sort of like agency or group or organization that maybe publishes ethics or kind of holds people accountable to these things?
The ethics, no. There is the International Remote Viewers Association, which I helped form,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't stick to controlled remote viewing. takes all manner of quote remote viewing. But it's International Remote Viewers Association, and their their website is very educational, by the way. It's irva.org. And it's a membership thing. You have to sign up. But it's very educational, and they stick to the scientific nature of it. They don't get woo-woo.
Cool.
So even in the remote viewing, not the controlled remote viewing, they try to stay very scientific, very methodical, and very ethical about it too. Yeah.
Okay.
What was the time frame that you were in the military? I should have asked that before.
60. I'm sorry. 93. Starting in 93 for 8 years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
8.5 years. Yeah.
Now, have you ever, or well, there's kind of personal fascination with this, is have you ever, there's so many conspiracies out there, especially things that have to do with like government cover-ups and what the government knows and doesn't know. Are there remote viewers out there that are able to find the truth to that? For instance, any UFO or alien stuff? And why are they putting that information out there, or is it just getting covered up, or is it just something that is like a personal, I need to learn how to do it to figure it out?
A lot of them are putting the information out there, but it sounds like another conspiracy theory, so nobody pays any attention.
Yeah.
Or if they do pay attention to it, they then magnify it so much that it turns into just a conspiracy theory, listen, if you want to hide the truth, put it on the internet.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes total sense.
Oh yeah. And the government knows that, by the way. Yeah.
Now, when you were in the military, were there any missions or operations you had to do that you were told that you were against, but you had to do regardless, just because you don't really have kind of control in the military?
Not really. Because we were not doing active mental work. If you've seen the movie The Men Who Stare at Goats, yeah, we know how to kill somebody. Yeah, we didn't do that. Yeah. And I mean that crosses an ethical line that none of us would cross. Period. And there were a lot of them that were extremely unpleasant. We were constantly spying on Saddam Hussein, who was just crazy as he could be, and did some horrible things. Idi Amin was a cannibal. He loved eating human flesh. And you get these experiences, and when you work for police on missing children, a lot of people say, I want to learn it to help bring missing children home. And I tell them right up front, you view a missing child, you may view a missing child who has been molested, killed, dismembered, and do you really want to experience that? The world is not a nice place.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I spent 10 years in the Army, went to Iraq twice. That's very, very unpleasant situations.
And we've done a lot of war,
Yeah. As far now, twice now I've heard you talk about, so the first time was talking about controlling computers or maybe controlling guidance systems on missiles, and the other one just now saying that people could kill people. So is there where's the line between remote viewing as just an like an observational, I'm an observer point of view, to something that you can actually interact with a
Yeah,
physical
there are
thing?
actually three different sort of levels of it. One is remote viewing, where you collect intelligence.
Mhm.
The other is called remote influencing, which is probably inappropriately named. It should be called remote persuasion,
Mm.
where you access a person at their subconscious level, and through persuasion, repeatedly, you change their way of thinking so that, their way of,
Inception style.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the other is called remote control. And remote control over things is called psychokinesis.
Hmm.
Remote control over people is called, in my opinion, totally despicable.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
people can, what, when you say remote control of people, what is like, what are you talking about there? What level of control?
You want someone to kill themselves, you can do it. You want someone to uh, driving along the road, you want them to swerve into the oncoming traffic, you can do it.
Wow.
It's despicable.
That's
Oh,
insane. I
yeah.
never even heard about that. Can anybody that has the ability to remote view gain the ability to do something like that? Or do you also have to have like a certain
If they
level of
had
like
the
natural
training,
gift?
if they had the training, I won't train them.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's
But people can train no matter, basically, no
humanity is
matter
not
who can
ready for
train
that.
that.
I'm sorry.
So basically anybody can learn how to do, well, if trained by someone who can get to the level where they can do something like that. It
I
doesn't
don't
take
know of
like a
anybody
special
who would.
skill.
I don't. There are very few people who are able to do it.
Yeah.
Almost nobody who are able to do it. Less than five,
Yeah.
and they won't do it. They won't
Yeah.
train it.
Hmm.
Well, that's
It's
good.
Yeah,
you
it's very good. Um, how do you know if somebody is able to do it? I mean, since you brought up the whole less than 5% can
less
do
than
it,
five people.
less than five
Mm.
people. Oh, wow. Okay.
And a lot of people who say, "Oh yeah, I can do remote influence and I can make people do anything,"
Mhm.
yeah, show me the proof. You
Yeah.
can't do it.
Wow. That's incredible. How long do you think it takes someone to get to the point where they can start influencing objects?
That seems to be more of a natural talent that you can
Mm.
develop, the PK and all that. Now, the Chinese have been training children to do that, but the Chinese have the rule that once you get to about 12 or 13, they don't want to deal with you anymore. And so they train young children to do that. And they've actually trained young children where they can put things inside of a jar sealed, and the people and the children can sit there at a table, not anywhere near the jar, and start making things move around in the jar. And I've even seen one where a child was able to make the needle come out of the jar without leaving a hole in the jar or anything, just pop out of the jar, and the
Wow.
jar stays totally intact and all that. So these things are possible, and the Chinese are in that. There was a Russian woman named Nina Kalagina who was stopping the hearts of rabbits and rats and all that. And the Russian plan was to have her be able to train that to Russian soldiers,
Mhm.
so that the Russian soldiers could come out to the battlefield, look across the battlefield at their enemy, and stop their hearts, and just win the war without firing a shell.
Yeah.
And she died of a heart attack. So
Shocking.
Oh, man.
so
Um,
goes around comes around, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
karma, really? Is
Luckily.
that,
Yeah.
is that what karma means?
Now with this ability to use remote viewing to see things in different timelines, or at least in the current future. Why don't we see a more aggressive leap in technology, especially as remote viewing is becoming more, I don't know if more used is the word or more mainstream, but as more and more people are using it, how come it seems like we're still kind of just like going a little bit at a time? Wouldn't there be organizations that should be able to make this massive leap in something?
Actually, we're making some massive leaps, yeah, but generally what stops is like you can have the principle for something, but if you don't have the materials,
Yeah.
what do? You know, there are certain metallic mixtures, you know, metallic things now that they're finding have fantastic properties. But if you don't have those developed, then you may know what you can do with them, but
Yeah, you just don't have the thing to actually do it.
That's right. Yeah.
Huh. What kind of industry? Go ahead.
A lot of it, you get the information, and yet it's so far advanced over your own personal knowledge that you really don't understand it. And then years later, somebody comes up with an invention, and you say, "Oh, that's what it was." Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Now I know you mentioned a lot that police forces are using this. What other like big industries, or what do you see the next most used like industry organization that's utilizing remote viewing?
We have been doing some stuff for space exploration, effective stuff. We do a lot for medical applications, detective work, business decisions, some personal decisions, and some of our remote viewers that we train, they hit the casinos, and it's like Attila the Hun, man, rape, pillage, and plunder, and they come back with money. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy. Now, I'm fascinated with spatial exploration stuff. What kind of things are being used? Is it more just to kind of find habitable planets? Are you guys just looking at like what's the source or what's the purpose of it there?
All different kinds of things like new concepts and all that, but also and I'll say this, but people who are listening, I'll also give you a little warning. Okay. Do you know what an area book is?
No.
An area book is okay. If the government sends a diplomat to Bugalogistan, okay,
yeah,
you don't want to start a war with Bugalogistan, and so you give that diplomat an area book that tells all of their customs, their currency, their religion, their, you know,
sure.
You go to Germany and you go to a home, you can take roses as a welcoming gift to that home, not red roses. In Germany, that is not acceptable. Any other color rose, yes, perfectly acceptable.
Okay.
As a diplomat, you have to know these things.
Yeah.
Okay. And in Germany, you hold your fork like this, not like this, you know, and things like that. And so we have been doing area books on for finding out if there are sentient beings and sentient civilizations on other targeted planets, and if so, making area books so that we don't start some kind of interplanetary war and get our astronauts killed if they go there, you know.
Sure. Yeah,
And,
really smart.
But here's the warning. People have found out that we're doing that, and they say, "Oh, I'll do it too," and they go into a meditative state and they write a book and say, "This planet, you know, Planet Scooby-Doo has this and all that." Listen, to get anybody to listen to it, you have to prove yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So in order to get anybody to listen to what we are doing, we had to have people give us civilizations or societies here on Earth
Mhm.
without telling us what the target was.
Mm-hmm.
We did an area book on it, and then they took that area book, went actually to that society, and checked our facts. So
Mhm.
if you can't prove yourself ahead of time, don't waste your time doing this because nobody's going to listen.
Sure.
Yeah. Now, have you done that personally? Have you gone to an off-world location and done an area book or worked on an area book for a different
Oh yeah, yeah,
entity? Can you
yeah.
talk about that at all?
Uh, no, here we have the non-disclosure agreements too. I can talk about
Yeah.
it, but no details. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Man, that's crazy. What can you give like a likelihood that any of that information will come to public in the near future as far as like area book stuff?
I'm waiting to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't let you in on any
I
of
mean,
that.
what
They're
am I,
just like,
psychic or something? I don't know.
yeah. I mean, maybe.
What's the farthest in the future that you've remote viewed?
Up to about 2050.
Wow.
Okay.
Back in 1998, I got my first task to do the future of the U.S. up through
Mhm.
2050. And we've had several people do that. And I've done it repeatedly because when you predict the future, when you read the future, you read it as it is at the moment
Oh,
of your session.
Sure.
Uh, uh, the future can change.
Mm-hmm.
We have an analogy called the arrest at Joe's Bar and Grill. And that is you ask a remote viewer, police ask a remote viewer, where's the criminal going to be at 9 o'clock tonight? You do your thing. He's going to be at Joe's Bar and Grill eating dinner. Good. At 8:30, the police hide in the bushes. At 8:45, he walks up. They jump out, arrest him, and at 9 o'clock, he's in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So you were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
They changed the future. If you had said at 9 o'clock he'll be in jail, they would not have gone to Joe's Bar and Grill, and he would be sitting there eating dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, yeah.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so, it's like the weather. You have to do updates.
Mm-hmm.
So forget where I'm going with this, but yeah, on the future.
When
is
was
to
it that
do the
you?
future of the U.S. up through 2050, and we've done that repeatedly, and keep finding pretty much the same exact thing, that it's not going to change from what was predicted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you talk
Is-
about that at all?
Yeah, the one in 1998 that I did actually said in 2020, a series of man-made natural disasters is going to start that will last for about 20 years. And it will drastically wipe out progressively wipe out much of the population. Things will get worse and worse and worse. And it will pretty well destroy the economy. It will clear out the cities. The cities will just, shopping centers vacant and all this. And schooling and personal relations will be through technology and, well, like we're doing here.
Like, hence this.
Yeah, and that's already happening,
Wow.
And if the remote viewing was accurate, 2020 was just the beginning.
Yeah.
Oh man. Wow.
It's going to get worse. Yeah.
Oh,
Hence,
Now,
I own my home. I have my electricity. I have my water.
yeah, that's why we live in Montana, so that's kind of like our thing too. Is that's where we want to move just a little bit more outside, away from everything.
Yeah.
Is anybody actively involved in trying to? How do I put this? Are you working to any of the major issues? Are they avoidable, do you think, or is it pretty much a trend that's started enough or has gained enough like momentum that it's hard to kind of stop the ship now?
They had asked me to do a prediction on December the 21st, 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was predicting the end of the world and disaster and all this. And what I kept finding was that it was just a tipping point, that the economy, society, the weather, the ecology and all that, we could do something about it up until that day. And that day was the crest of the hill, and it would start downhill from there. And I kept telling this to everybody, and they said, "Yeah, that's neat viewing, yeah," and ignored it. And here we are.
Yeah. So people need to get out of the cities. That's what you're saying.
The East Coast, we had predicted the volcano on Canary Island. 15 cubic kilometers of the side of that volcano has already separated by 4 feet. That falls into the sea. Look at the U.S. Geological Service's prediction of when that falls. And the U.S. Geological Service says it won't fall unless there's a major series of earthquakes. Canary Island has had over 900 earthquakes since the 24th of December this last year.
Wow.
And the U.S. Geological Service predicts that if that falls into the sea as one piece, it will wipe out the East Coast for 26 miles inland from Maine all the way down into the middle of South America. And the Gulf of Mexico, that wave will have nowhere to go. It'll just wipe out even more in the Gulf of Mexico. And
that doesn't sound too fun.
we let people know, we published it, and everybody said, "Oh, okay."
When do you think that would happen if it was to happen? Do you have any idea?
The U.S. Geological Service says it won't happen for about 600 years from now. But they say it will happen. It cannot be prevented. It is going to happen. And it will not happen for at least 600 more years unless there are major earthquakes and unless it separates more and falls into the sea. And we're just, Canary Islands is just having this major rise of earthquakes. So who knows? You know,
that's fascinating. Do you ever get stressed? Do you ever like, are you ever curious about things and then kind of hold back from trying to remote view them just in order to save yourself from any type of, like, do you always want to know something if you can know something?
Yeah, not really. One of the things about the controlled remote viewing that English Swan created, he was creating it for the military, knowing that we would be exposed mentally to some really gross stuff, you know. And so the process itself has a lot of protection for the viewer and also a method for detoxification. And so,
what does that involve? Does that involve just like a certain type of meditation?
No, it's a part of the step-by-step process. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And things like gory murders and all that. we have viewed those, and we know the tools from our training how to detoxify from them. Now you can detoxify emotionally from them, but once you've experienced it, you still have the memory.
Mhm.
And you can't get rid of the memory of it. So this is one of the drawbacks to learning controlled remote viewing, you know.
Leaves scars, long-term scars.
Would you say that's the biggest drawback?
Probably no, it's not. The biggest drawback is if you experience those and don't detoxify. That's the biggest drawback, because then you have to live with the emotions and all that. And also, when you access a person mentally, you not only get what you're there for, you can also inadvertently pick up their belief systems, their political beliefs, their religious beliefs, their hatreds, their desires. If
Wow.
if they get a real joy out of killing people, you know, things like this, a little bit of that may wind up in your subconscious. When you learn controlled remote viewing, you have to learn detoxification. You have to learn how to get rid of it.
Wild. Oh man. Now, have you ever used it to feed your own curiosity and things, maybe like, for instance, ancient civilizations or anything like that? Have you ever found yourself doing that? Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So were there incredibly intelligent, technologically advanced people well before we think there were?
Yeah, there actually were. There's one task that I've been doing on this repeatedly and can't find the answer to. And I call it "What's in the Box" problem. Ed Leeds called him, who created Coral Castle. If you know what Coral Castle is, he was able to pick up 10-ton blocks of stone and move them around, stack them up on top of each other really high and all that. And he had a box that disappeared when he died. Mysterious box. And he protected that box from everything and everybody. In 1812, I think it was, there was basically a UFO that landed, and the inhabitant got out and carried a box with her. They described it as a female, carried a box with her and wouldn't let anybody have that box. But the people there in that village were allowed to go through the UFO, and they couldn't find a motor. They couldn't find anything. And she protected that box. When she got back in and took off, you know, I want to know what's in the box.
Yeah, what's in the box?
Yeah, because evidently, you know, and so this is, you know, this is, how did the Mayans lift 60-ton stones and build them into walls? You know, what's in the box?
Yeah.
And I have never been able to find the answer to that question. That's the one that has stumped me again and again and again.
Well, hopefully you find it one day.
I hope so. Yeah.
So you're still training this. And before we get out of here and close up, will you talk a little bit about your training program, where people can find it? A little bit about that.
My training program is on Kajabi platform, educational platform. And I train controlled remote viewing and associative remote viewing. I can explain that in a minute.
Yeah.
And you find the sign up information before you sign up. I give warnings about what it is, what it isn't, and all that. And you find that on my website, which is CRV IEWER.com.
Okay.
And the associative remote viewing is, in remote viewing, numbers and things like that are very hard to get. Okay. And so, and binary questions are hard to do logic, because logic jumps in. And so you want to know if team A is going to win or team B is going to win. Okay. You can describe the winning team. Well, they're wearing football uniforms. They're both wearing uniforms. Okay. So you say, okay, if team A wins, then after the game, I'm going to hand you an apple and have you taste it. If team B wins, I'm going to give you a lemon and have you taste that. Now, sit down now, don't view the game, view after the game for what I hand you and you taste. Oh, I taste a lemon. I know who's going to win the game.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's not directly seeing.
Associate something that's easy to view with something that's hard to view and view it instead. And so we teach associative remote viewing and controlled remote viewing, those two courses. And the information about those is on my website, crviewer.com.
Awesome.
Okay.
And
Awesome.
I'll make sure I link that website and your LinkedIn and all that stuff so people can.
By the way, on my website, we have about 450 now practice targets. And if you're doing psychic work, if you just want to try your hand at it, we don't track anybody. You don't have to sign up. You don't have to give your name. We don't anything. Just go to that. It says, free resources, and you can go to, it's called Target of the Week, and it gives you a coordinate, and you sit down and you write down that coordinate and then start writing down impressions that you get. Then you go back, go to that coordinate, click on it, and it shows you the target, and then you can score what you got.
Oh, cool.
So it's a way to find out, if you have the ability or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna
check that
ask
out.
you that, but yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna have to try that out.
Yeah, I'll give it a try. It's fun.
Sweet. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. This was
Thank you.
Yeah,
great
Lyn, this was awesome.
conversation. Yeah. Well, we should do it again sometime. I'll keep in touch. Ryan, you good?
Good. Thank you, everybody.
All right. See you, everybody.